Hey there, everyone. Pop quiz. How many planets are there in our solar system? If you've been keeping up to date with astronomy news, you may have answered that there are 8 planets, with much of the scientific community having cut Pluto from the majors roster. Of course, some of us old-fashioned stubborn types still like to think there's 9 planets, and there's nothing the International Astronomical Union can do about it. Well, with such a discrepancy in perspectives, it might help all of us if we take a look at what exactly makes a planet. For today's field trip, we will be hopping aboard our spaceship and traveling to the far edges of the solar system to see some relatively little-known celestial bodies that may very well make you question your very definition of a planet. So, let's get to it.
Jump commencing. Destination. Lock. 134340. Pluto. Reading. Destination. Data. Pluto. Trans-Neptunian object in the solar system. Currently located approximately 34 AU from Sol. Discovered in 1930 by Clyde W. Tombaugh at the Lowell Observatory. Details. First known trans-Neptunian object. Initially categorized as a planet. Later categorized as a dwarf planet in 2006. Jump completed. We have arrived at the destination.
Alright, here we are. Our first stop is every underdog's favorite planet. Toid? Dwarf planet? Minor planet? What do we call you again, Pluto? Regardless of what we choose to call it, Pluto is smaller than any one of the 8 planets from Mercury to Neptune by a pretty sizable margin. The smallest of the planets is Mercury, and it still has just over twice the radius of Pluto. That's not the only reason that the IAU demoted its planetary status, however. Another trait taken into consideration, and this one may be even more critical, is that a planet should have cleared its neighborhood. To clear one's neighborhood, the orbit of a celestial body must not contain other objects that operate outside of that celestial body's gravitational influence. Unfortunately for Pluto, there are a number of known, and perhaps even greater a number of unknown, independent Kuiper Belt objects in Pluto's neighborhood. The final nail in the coffin on this point may come from the simple fact that Pluto's orbit crosses over into Neptune's own orbit, and Pluto definitely isn't clearing Neptune out of the way anytime soon. Something to really chew on, though, is that if Pluto crossing Neptune's path means Pluto hasn't cleared its neighborhood, then doesn't that mean the same thing for Neptune in turn? Further argument contends that even Earth co-orbits with thousands of asteroids, one of which is orbiting the Earth as a sort of small mini-moon right now as of the time of this recording. How about the hundreds of thousands of asteroids in Jupiter's orbit? Whatever the case, the IAU remains firm in its decision to strike Pluto from the list of planets. Much of what I have said so far about Pluto seems to support its inclusion as a planet. It was small, sure, but nothing else in the solar system was even close to as big as it was, right?
Jump commencing. Destination. Lock. 15760. Albion. Reading. Destination. Data. Albion. Trans-Neptunian object in the solar system. Currently located approximately 42 AU from Sol. Discovered in 1992 by David C. Jewett and Jane X. Liu at the Mauna Kea Observatory. Details. First trans-Neptunian object to be found in the 6 decades since the discovery of the Pluto-Charon system. Jump completed. We have arrived at the destination.
The case seemed relatively clear-cut to the public for decades, with schools of the time teaching that there existed exactly 9 planets in the solar system, from Mercury all the way out to Pluto. Or, depending on when you asked, it could be Neptune. But the model we built all fell apart on the 30th of August in 1992, with the discovery of Albion. Welcome to Albion, originally designated 1992 QB1. Albion is special for a few reasons. Firstly, the QB1 part of its designation is where the term Cubewanos originates from. Cubewanos are trans-Neptunian objects that are not synced up with the resonance of Neptune's orbit, and their roughly circular orbits never cross over into Neptune's way. Another reason Albion will go down in the astronomical history books is that this discovery, though it took 62 years to make, would be the first in a line of thousands of trans-Neptunian objects uncovered in the years to come. The first domino in the line had fallen.
Jump commencing. Destination Lock 136199. Eris. Reading Destination Data. Eris, trans-Neptunian object in the solar system, currently located approximately 95 AU from Sol. Discovered in 2005 by Mike E. Brown, Chadwick A. Trujillo, and David L. Rabinowitz at the Palomar Observatory. Details. First trans-Neptunian object discovered with a size comparable to or exceeding that of the mass of Pluto. Jump completed. We have arrived at the destination.
Here we are at this gem of a dwarf planet, Eris. When Albion's discovery kicked off the discussion over planethood amongst astronomers and the like, it was like tipping over a line of dominoes. After that, dozens of trans-Neptunian objects were discovered, and then hundreds and even thousands, and we had to face the reality that the solar system was full of them. So far, they'd all been significantly smaller than Pluto. Frankly, this was probably taken as a good sign by much of the community, hoping that maybe the lines of planethood could be drawn between the larger bodies and the smaller ones, with no muddy middle ground. Then came the god of discord and strife, Eris. Originally designated 2004 UB313, Eris was immediately considered for inclusion as a minor planet, at the very least. It had a size that rivaled that of Pluto, though the two bodies are so incredibly far away that it was tough to make a fair comparison without very wide margins of error, and so nobody wanted to include Eris as a full-fledged planet just yet. Many astronomers could see the writing on the wall, though. It was a dilemma that threatened to tear into decades of understanding about what it means to be a planet. On one hand, if Eris was allowed planethood, then it would inevitably open the floodgates for a great deal of other minor planets to join the fray for their chance at inclusion. Even worse, if Eris ended up being much smaller than anticipated, then it might not be so suitable as a candidate after all. On the other hand, if Eris was denied planethood, and it turns out that the minor planet did indeed have a size that was roughly comparable to the mass of Pluto, then the best distinction we had for defining a planet would be at odds with the implementation.
Jump commencing. Destination Lock 136108 Haumea. Reading Destination Data. Haumea, trans-Neptunian object in the solar system, currently located approximately 44 AU from Sol. Discovered in 2014 by Jose Luis Ortiz Moreno of the Sierra Nevada Observatory and Mike E. Brown of Caltech at the Palomar Observatory. Details. First trans-Neptunian object discovered to have a ring system. Jump completed. We have arrived at the destination.
Another one of the more interesting trans-Neptunian objects we'll touch down on here is Haumea. Haumea kind of looks like a big egg in space, with an oblong shape. Haumea's shape is due to its fast spin, rotating so quickly that it pulls the sides out in sort of a large bulge. While most planetary bodies have a bulge of some sort from their rotation, this one is one you can actually see, and even better yet, it has a small satellite and rings.
Jump commencing. Destination Lock 486958 Arikoth. Reading Destination Data. Arikoth, trans-Neptunian object in the solar system, currently located approximately 44 AU from Sol. Discovered in 2014 by Mark W. Bui and the New Horizons KBO search of the Hubble Space Telescope Observatory. Details. Farthest and most primitive object in the solar system visited by the New Horizons probe. Jump completed. We have arrived at the destination.
Ah yes, Arikoth. So unusual to find way out there in the abyss of the Kuiper Belt, and yet not so entirely unexpected. Arikoth was recorded by the New Horizons probe on its extended mission into the Kuiper Belt after passing by Pluto. While we've seen plenty of oddly shaped objects in this region, Arakoth was, somehow, even odder. This object featured two rounded sections joined together almost as if they had been glued together, and in a way that is what happened. Arakoth represents the primitive formation of celestial bodies, which often featured the merger of multiple smaller agglomerations with various levels of chaotic results. While most would imagine that colliding bodies would either merge into one new object with a well-rounded shape over time, or be absolutely obliterated on impact, it appears the collision which formed modern Arakoth was gentle enough to allow the two objects to merge without completely changing their original shapes. In a way, looking at Arakoth is like looking at what our own planet may have looked like when it was first being born, gravity pulling together nearby smaller objects and creating a protoplanet of sorts. Isn't that kind of beautiful? Well, we've reached the end of our journey through the Kuiper Belt, but we're not quite done yet. There is one more dwarf planet that we haven't yet covered, but it's nowhere near the Kuiper Belt.
Jump commencing. Destination. Lock. 1. Series. Reading. Destination. Data. Series. Asteroid in the solar system. Currently located approximately 3 AU from Sol. Discovered in 1801 by Giuseppe Piazzi at the Palermo Astronomical Observatory. Details. First asteroid ever discovered. Initially categorized as a planet. Later categorized as a dwarf planet. The only known such object inside Neptune's orbit. Jump completed. We have arrived at the destination.
This is Ceres. It's a large celestial body orbiting the Sun between Mars and Jupiter, though if you haven't recently boned up on your astronomy lessons, then you may not be familiar with it. Let me paint a picture of Ceres' discovery. It's the turn of the 19th century, and astronomy is really starting to get into the swing of things. All modern planets up to Uranus have been found by that point, leaving only Neptune left to be discovered. But instead of looking beyond the orbit of Uranus, some astronomers thought to look a little closer to home, in the asteroid belt between the orbits of our neighboring planet Mars and the gas giant Jupiter. Their theories predicted that something big had to be lurking in that area. That's when Giuseppe Piazzi saw Ceres for the first time. First, he thought it was a comet of some sort, but it moved much too slowly to be a comet. After reporting it, Ceres was announced as a newly discovered planet, but it was soon demoted to simple asteroid status, and eventually it became the first celestial body in a catalog of minor planets that grew to include many asteroids and small orbiting bodies. The IAU later reclassified minor planets, putting them into either the categories of dwarf planets, of which Ceres is the only one that is not trans-Neptunian, or small solar system bodies, aka SSSBs, which include all of the rest. While it's nowhere near the size of Pluto, Eris, or any planets, Ceres is still an interesting outlier that shows Pluto wasn't the first planet to see demotion, and it may very well not be the last.
Jump commencing. Destination. Lock. Earth. Reading. Destination. Data. Earth. Third planet in the solar system. Currently located approximately 1 AU from Sol. Jump completed. We have arrived at the destination.
Welcome back to Earth. We've completed our journey to some of the coldest, furthest celestial bodies that exist in the solar system to get an idea of just how many planets there really are. Are there only 8, or is Pluto a planet too? If Pluto's a planet, does that make Eris a planet as well? How about Ceres and all of those big trans-Neptunian objects? The answer is we don't really know for sure. It's hard to create a rigid definition for planets that doesn't severely overlap into other categories of celestial bodies, but I don't think that should be considered a problem. Rather, it should be considered the natural way of things. Not everything can be fit neatly into its own discrete little box. Take Jupiter and the gas giant, for example. Jupiter is so massive that over 1,000 Earths could fit inside of the gas giant if it were hollow. These gas giants get so massive sometimes that they can even essentially give birth to a new star. So in a way, Jupiter is as much a failed star as it is a planet. But even this is nothing compared to some of the exoplanets that have been indirectly observed in other systems, such as GQ Lupi b, which is at least several times larger than Jupiter and could even be several dozen times larger depending on how correct current estimates are. Because of their size, these behemoths could even be on the lower end of brown dwarf classification. Brown dwarfs are the limbo for celestial bodies that are too big to be regular planets, but too small to be stars. However, the difference may only be that of just a few Jupiter masses. And if you thought Mercury was safe from scrutiny thanks to being larger than Pluto, think again. Turns out the planet Mercury is smaller than Jupiter's moon Ganymede and Saturn's moon Titan. Should these moons be considered planets then? Of course not, because they orbit another larger body, right? Sure, that's true, but if we want to get real pedantic, objects and their satellites both actually orbit a center of gravity which may or may not be inside the surface of the host planet. And what happens if a large planet-sized object travels into the inner solar system, as they are known to do, and gets caught in a co-orbital or even satellite configuration with one of our sacred planets? Heck, the best viable candidates for a double planet system are Pluto and Charon, and, drumroll please, the Earth and the Moon. Yes, the Moon is so dang big for a natural satellite that while it is absolutely, indeed, a satellite of the Earth, it puts Pluto and the dwarf planets all to shame. The only other non-planetary objects in the solar system that outclass the Earth's moon are 3 of Jupiter's satellites and 1 of Saturn's. No other rocky planet has a moon anywhere near the size. So let's try this once more. How many planets are there in our solar system? Ha, good luck with that one. Now for another great question. How many stars are there in the entire universe? Even better, we do actually have a pretty good idea. Check out the video linked on the end screen now, answering the question of how many stars, galaxies, and more are within our universe. And I'm betting the number will absolutely shock you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a quick like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more about space, science, and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on our next trip.